Have you ever had that moment? The alarm goes off, and before your feet even touch the floor, there's this silent pressure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about being tired. It's that sinking feeling that your whole day is already, planned out and controlled by someone else.
And that feeling is incredibly important. We often try to explain it away, right? We say, oh, it's my manager, or I'm not getting paid enough, or the hours are just too long.
Yeah, we blame the obvious things.
But the source material we looked at suggests the problem is much, much deeper than just a bad job.
We think we're trying to escape work. But that's not it at all, is it? The sources say we're actually trying to escape the cage.
That is the perfect way to put it. Escaping the cage versus escaping the effort. That distinction it's just fundamental to understanding this entire psychological profile.
Because the work itself, the actual tasks, that's often not the issue.
Not at all. It's the lack of autonomy, the feeling of being directed.
And what we found so fascinating in this deep dive is that this feeling, this caged sensation, it's not some personal failing. It's not that you're lazy.
No.
It's shared by, thousands, maybe millions of people. Entrepreneurs, creators, artists, basically anyone who looked at the normal path and just couldn't do it. They had to go build their own.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're diving into that core question from the sources. Is this intense inability to work under someone else's authority a weakness, something to be fixed?
Or is it the complete opposite?
Or is it evidence of a very specific, maybe even rare psychological type that it hasn't found the right environment to unleash its power yet? Let's unpack that.
Okay, let's start with that immediate feeling of resistance. The sources describe it as almost a physical response.
Yeah.
You walk into a workplace and, your body is there, but your mind is already looking for the exit.
It's a kind of suffocation, isn't it? The suffocation of structure for people wired this way. The fixed hours, the required meetings, the reporting up the chain. It all just feels incredibly constraining.
How are you supposed to be creative when your day is boxed in by instructions and reports?
You can't. And that leads to this really interesting paradox the research brings up.
Right. Because these same people, the ones who might be labeled difficult or unmanageable in a normal company, they often have this incredible, almost superhuman ability to learn and create and solve huge problems when they're left to their own devices.
Exactly. It's not a competence issue. It's an intolerance for being told how to be competent.
So it's all about the environment.
It is. You put that person in the right place, a business they start, a project they own, where their autonomy is respected and they can become incredibly impactful, but the potential just gets smothered in a rigid corporate box.
And this isn't something that just shows up when you're 30. The sources make a clear connection back to childhood.
A very clear connection.
It asks us to think about that kid, the one who always pushes back on being told exactly how to do something.
And that same kid grows up and feels that same psychological suffocation at the very idea of a 9-to-5. It's a consistent thread, a lifelong resistance to being commanded.
And I think this is a good moment to speak directly to you, the listener. Because if this is all sounding familiar, it can be really tempting to dismiss it.
Right, to just say, oh, that's just some self-help talk.
But the sources are pretty firm on this.
Yeah.
Avoiding this conversation with yourself is avoiding real self-development. You're here to kind of look in a mirror.
And sometimes that means seeing a strength where you've always been told there was a flaw.
So let's put a name to this pattern. This isn't just about being, a rebel or a hustler. There's a formal psychological structure here that the research identifies.
Correct. The term they use, the core concept, is the high autonomy drive. And it's not just one trait, it's a whole psychological pattern that really shapes everything about a person.
Okay, so let's break that down. This is the core of the deep dive. Let's start with the first trait, where someone with this drive gets their self-worth. It's not what you'd expect.
It's completely inverted from the standard corporate model. For this person, self-worth comes almost entirely from their ability to make their own decisions.
Their own decisions. Sovereign decisions, as the source puts it.
Exactly. Freedom is at the top of their personal hierarchy of needs. It's not about the big salary or the fancy title or even praise from the boss.
But hold on, let me push back on that a bit.
Yeah.
Are they really rejecting money? I mean, if they turn down a $500,000 job to make $80,000 on their own.
It's a great question, and the sources are clear. They're not rejecting money itself. They're rejecting the deal that comes with it.
The transaction.
The transaction. If that money is tied to a loss of control, if you need approval for every little thing, the money loses its value. The psychological price of being controlled is just too high. They will literally pay a premium for freedom.
Because freedom is what confirms their value. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about trait 2, their learning style? This one really goes against everything we're taught in school.
It does. They thrive on experimentation over instruction. A user manual, to them, feels like an insult.
They want to make mistakes.
They love to make mistakes because that's how they learn. They gain real, deep competence through that messy, self-directed process of trial and error. The journey has to be theirs.
So give me a practical example.
Yeah.
Say 2 people are learning a new piece of software.
Okay. The first person, the more compliant type, reads the manual. They follow the tutorial step by step. They get the job done efficiently.
Right.
The high autonomy person, they open the program, completely ignore the tutorial, and just start clicking everything, smashing buttons, trying to break it.
Intentionally causing errors.
Yes, because that's how they find the boundaries. To an outsider, it looks chaotic, inefficient. But the sources argue they build a much deeper mental map of how it works. They earned that knowledge through struggle, so it sticks.
Which flows right into trait 3, a powerful aversion to systems.
An intense aversion. If you're wired to learn by breaking things, a rigid, inflexible corporate system feels like a prison.
So things like quarterly reports, mandatory check-ins.
For them, that's not helpful structure. That is something that is actively suffocating their curiosity and killing their internal drive to create.
But can't they just tolerate it? I mean, everyone has parts of their job they don't like.
Because for them, the system isn't just annoying, it's an attack on their core value, the ability to make decisions. The moment a rigid process tells them how to solve a problem, their motivation just starts to die.
So all their mental energy goes into fighting the process, not solving the actual problem.
Precisely. They need freedom to operate, or the psychological cost is just too high.
And that brings us to the last trait, trait 4, which is this incredible internal engine they have. Self-efficacy and the search for meaning.
Yeah, they have this really high, almost unshakable sense of self-efficacy. It's this core belief that they can figure anything out no matter how hard it is.
They might fail over and over.
10 times, 100 times.
Yeah.
But they never doubt their ultimate ability to succeed. They doubt the prescribed method, but they never, ever doubt themselves.
And that belief is tied to a bigger need for meaning, for self-realization.
Absolutely. They need to feel like they are the author of their own life, their own impact. Just serving a function, just punching a clock. That's not enough. If the work doesn't have a deep personal meaning, their self-efficacy tells them they can and must go build that meaning somewhere else.
So to pull it all together, we have worth from decision-making, learning through experimentation, hating rigid systems, and this powerful engine of self-efficacy and meaning. What's the major takeaway for someone listening right now, someone who feels this in their bones?
I think the biggest takeaway from all the material is this. If you have consistently felt like you just don't fit in traditional jobs, the probability is not that you are a failure.
Yeah.
The probability is that you simply have a different psychological operating system, one that's optimized for independence.
So this deep dive is really meant to act as a kind of mirror.
A necessary mirror. Because not everyone gets this. Your boss won't get it. Maybe even your family won't get it. And the real risk is spending decades trying to fix yourself. When you're not broken, you're just on the wrong playing field.
And that misalignment has a huge cost. Burnout, frustration, just so much wasted potential.
All that energy you spend resisting the structure could be channeled into creating something meaningful if you were just in the right environment.
So the call to action here seems to be about radical self-recognition.
It is. Once you understand you have this high autonomy drive, you can stop fighting. You can stop trying to force the square peg into the round hole.
And start building a square structure for yourself.
Exactly. You find, or more likely, you build an environment that doesn't just tolerate your nature, but actually uses it as its primary fuel. That's the path.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the high autonomy drive. We're talking about a person whose self-worth is tied to making their own decisions. They learn best by doing, by experimenting, by failing. Rigid systems feel suffocating to them, and they are powered by this incredible self-belief and a deep need for their work to have meaning.
And what's so powerful is that understanding this one drive, it's really only the first step. The source material shows this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle of human motivation.
Which leaves a really important final question for you, the listener, to think about after this.
If the high autonomy drive is just one of 5 fundamental psychological drives, what are the other 4? And more importantly, how do you figure out which one is truly running your life? because mapping that internal landscape is the only way to make sure your next step is toward freedom and not just into another cage.